Welcome, listeners. I'm so thankful to have you here today.
Thank
And
you.
it's just going to be such a treat because
Mhm.
I've got kind of a new friend that I met. It's Andi Bull. She's an author. And I told her I read her book and could not put it down. And it's been a long time since that's happened to me, a really long time. Usually I get distracted or I'm not interested in it. Was so good. And we're going to let Andi tell her story a little bit, but just so you know, this book will be in my show notes. It's called When Your Protectors Didn't Protect. And Andi, I got to tell you guys too, I'm a little jelly because we went to Bob Goff and we got some assistance with writing. I'm like in the beginning stages and I see Andi's got a book out already. I'm like, what? How did you do that? So welcome, Andi. Thank
Thank
you for being
you.
here.
Oh, Lisa, you're such a joy. It's just my pleasure. I mean, we connected. I think we had a heart connection the minute I sat down
Yeah.
near you and your husband on the couch. And to be fair to you, I had already written my book. I think, did I ever mention that to you? I had written my book right before the conference. I finished it. I put the final touches on it. And the conference was actually the carrot to get me to finish my book. I needed the last push to get that work done because, as a writer, you sometimes, it's self-imposed. And
Yeah.
so you have to forge the discipline to sit. And sometimes a reward is needed. And so I thought, well, I'm going to give myself this conference. It's going to be my gift. And that's what got me there. So that's how the book came about at that time.
I love it. And it's so well written. And I came
Thank you.
to Bob's with the idea of what my book was going to be. And
Yeah.
then I went there and I went, wow, that would have been really bad. So glad that I got a little bit of direction and how to make it a little more personal. But it's a lot of work. And I keep
Mhm.
talking to Bob because mine's a ways off and I'm,
Mm.
putting timelines because I don't have all day to work on it. And I don't know if
No,
I could.
no.
But Andi, I'm gonna be honest with you. Your book is so good. And that when I read it, I had a little bit of that imposter, like I'm like, I
Oh,
can't do
no.
this. Like I can't write, like I can't write, I started doing that, but it's okay because I'm a daughter of the king. So
Yeah.
however he wants to use his book, if it's just to heal me, if it's to
Yes.
heal others,
Yeah.
whatever it is, I can't wait to put it out there.
Oh,
But what I want you to know about your book, and I want to get into your story because I know it's interesting. I want you to share whatever you're comfortable sharing.
okay.
But your book is kind of about situations where maybe you've been abused, maybe you've had, but this is what I want you to know. There are some of us out there who had the same effects. Now I have like good relationships with my parents
Mhm.
now, and I know that they wanted to do what was best for me. And
Right.
so I can give them a lot of grace. And as a parent, I
Mhm.
want my kids to read this because you know what I mean though, because
Yeah.
even if we want to do it
Mhm.
the God way, the better way, things fall through. And I think my parents were so concerned about how I was going to turn out that they just probably kept trying to have high standards and I fell into this people pleasing. When
Uh,
I read your book, I was like, "Oh, it was so healing for me." And Andi, you have such a gift. I just have to talk about this one story. You have a gift with bringing up biblical stories that I could see. Like that story about the father who had two sons,
yeah.
and the one took off with all his money and woo, had fun, and the
Right.
other one stayed there and worked. I always had a hard time with that story because I was always like, well, the guy that was there the whole time, because that's me.
Yeah.
I am the son. No one's
Right.
ever explained that son to me before.
Working your way into relationship with the Father, earning His pleasure, doing all the right
Everything.
things, and missing the main thing.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. But when you told the story, you looked at both sides. And
Yeah.
you talked about how the father humbled himself to that son who had stayed there as well and came to him and was understanding and loving. And I missed that. I missed that all along. And so that was eye opening, but that wasn't the only place that was eye opening.
Oh,
So I'm just like, this is the best book ever. And the
oh,
stories, your story is amazing.
oh, thank you. Well, can I backtrack a little bit?
Yes.
I would like to backtrack to what you said about the imposter syndrome
Mhm.
and your story. And I want to tell you that with every stroke of the keyboard, I had to fight that myself. I've been a speaker, and God called me when I was 8 years old. I wasn't even a Christian yet. I was 10 years old when I became a believer, when Jesus came and got me. And until Jesus came and got me, I hadn't had a friend and I hadn't felt love. But at 8 years old, I was sitting on the bar stool of Peter's Pancake House in South Africa, where I was raised. And God came in. He said, I've called you to heal. And I saw this picture of bright lights in my face. And even at 8 years old, I knew people were behind those lights, but I had never seen anything like that before. My dad was a pastor. I talk about that in the book. And behind those lights, knowing that there were people there, but not understanding what that calling was. So, we just try to follow Jesus the best that we can and try to become better versions of ourselves through our lives. And I talk about that in the book as well, empowering ourselves to become these better versions of ourselves. But so funny, so much I want to say to you about what you said. But I think really in that moment, I understood my calling was speaking, but I never ever felt it was writing. I enjoyed scribbling poems and writing little stories when I was younger. That's the extent of it. A gentleman named Larry Titus from Kingdom Global Ministries. He's got this aesthetic or understanding that God never said we're to build a church, we're to build a kingdom. The church is Jesus to build. We are to be kingdom builders. That allows us to put our focus on people and care about the things that God cares about. And then, even in the book of Acts, it said, and he added to their number daily, because these people were so full of love and gracious and kind. You couldn't help but be attracted to that. So anyway, he asked me to work with him on a couple of books that he was writing. So I helped him co-author those. And it kind of gave me sea legs, so to speak, for writing. One day, in the midst of taking a break between chapters for him to see what we'd been working on, the first story in my book poured out about my dad repenting to me on his deathbed for abusing me. And I thought, what is this? What is this? And I thought, could I take it from here? And so I began to write, and I got a lot of words. There's a lot of focus and pressure on writers. You've got to have this many words or that
Yeah.
many words. But I had a lot of words, and I felt God interrupt my writing. I was about 80% done with the book. He said, it's too theological. He said, and then he showed me a picture of a woman in a coffee shop reading my book. And I didn't know what that meant. And I was
Did she look
frustrated.
like me, Andy?
I know. Well, she was as beautiful as you. And so she was reading my book, but she was getting through it in one sitting. And the Lord said to me, I want women to be able to plow through this book. And I thought, well, this book is not plowable. It's
I
not.
have chills. I have chills.
Me too. And that's weird because it's like my story. But so I thought, what is that? So I was kind of cranky, kind of get cranky with God sometimes. And I'm like, darn it, you couldn't have told me this when I was, 20% into the book. But what he had done was he had given me a lot of content. And I came home and I sat with that word and I thought, what do I do with this? And a friend told me, she said, Andy, you're all about just sitting with women one-on-one in coffee shops. Yes, I like to speak and I felt comfortable doing that. But God had called me away from the stage during this time, completely addressing areas of identity that I might have gotten from speaking or whatever, I'd felt like, okay, this is my identity, and pulled away all of that stuff during these years that he had me silent, and asked me to write. It was a very humbling journey. And I did fight imposter syndrome the whole way through. Finally, I realized I do sit with women and have coffee with them almost on the daily sometimes. And I just want to talk to them like you're talking to me on this podcast, just
Yeah.
authentically, real, like a big sister, like a mom, like an aunt.
Mhm.
Just be somebody they can trust in the pages. Once I got that, I went back, I stripped everything out. The book's not like super long, but it is congruent. And so I just want to encourage you that your book is going to be all that and more because of who you are already. It's going to come out through your words.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think I could get teary-eyed. I think the thing that is pulling me through this that I've never had before in my life, and I always, like you talk about, you met Jesus on that stool. I don't know. I kind of always felt him. I don't even really remember when I didn't. I was so alone, but I always felt him. But
Mm,
I don't think I got surrendering to him until I went through my hard stage 1 catch of that breast cancer, which was miraculous but scary.
yeah.
And that was when I surrendered to
Mm,
him. And then I go, hey, I might not be able to write this book, but I'm a daughter of the king.
that's right.
And that is the thought that is
Mm,
pulling me through that I need to keep going back to.
yeah.
He can use this for whatever purpose he wants. And I'm good with that. I'm just good with that. And I'm not kidding. Like, even if it's just meeting great people and
Yes.
healing, I'm
Yes.
good.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I asked Jesus. I said, listen, I may not be the best writer, but what I do know is I can give this to you and ask this to be my passport to take me to the woman who needs the hug,
Yeah.
who needs to be seen. And the
Yes.
whole book is about that God sees you, in those moments of despair that you talked about with being a survivor of
Mhm.
breast cancer and these hard, hard things. We think, a lot of times there's this misnomer that once we become a believer, that life just gets better. What I always think about is, now it stays, it's hard all the
Yes.
all the way through. It's hard, but we have this um, beautiful creator and friend who's with us. His name, Emmanuel, God with us. He wants to be
Mhm.
present with us and help us to get through that hard. And when I met him um, in a remarkable experience, I was 10 years old and I was sitting in this youth group and I was there. I didn't want to be there. But as the preacher's kid, we showed up to everything. And this woman who was a famous South African actress was giving her testimony. She didn't say anything theological. She just said, Jesus can be your friend. And honestly, Lisa, in that moment, she disappeared and I saw Jesus.
Oh,
And I just ran up to him and I said, I want to be a Christian. And it was March 5th, 1976.
I love that.
Nearly, that's 50 years next year.
Wow.
And I didn't walk my journey out perfectly because I'd been abused. I developed a lot of very poor coping mechanisms. I
Mhm.
didn't understand that my body was my own and that I could have boundaries around myself. I didn't understand about boundaries. I was extremely codependent. I grew up with something that you referenced, which was this dreadful performance anxiety, feeling like I had to be good all the time. And when you feel like you have to be good all the time, what happens is that all the bad, and I say that in quotes, right, which is usually just normal behavior that God wants to grow your character through, I would hide all of that
Mhm.
and shove that away because those were the parts of me nobody could see. So I was living this life
Yeah.
that was not congruent, not authentic. I didn't even know where to begin. And something important that I talk about in the book is this experience that I had with seeing normal in chapter 1.
Yep.
Yeah. So I remember the moment so clearly. I was with my dear girlfriend in college. Her mama had invited us home, and I was too far, lived too far away to be able to get to my house. So my friend said, "Come on home with me." You know, she's from Texas. "Come on home, y'all. Come on home. Pile in the car." Didn't matter how many of us. And I was like, "Are you sure? Are you sure this is okay? Is your mom going to be all right with this?" And
Mhm.
yeah, absolutely. "Come on, y'all. Come down. Have Thanksgiving with my mama." So we drove down to her mama's house. Her mama was there on the porch of this little tiny house in Galveston. Just couldn't wait to see us, embraced us in her arms the minute that I met her. I felt so safe. And I think I tell the story in the book that I was sleeping in the living room because there weren't enough beds.
Yes.
And it was also the laundry room, kind of, discreetly tucked behind these doors. And she came out in the morning. She had the laundry basket balanced on my hip. She had folded all my laundry. She was holding up my bra, and straps were like stretched, 6 miles long. She said, "Child, what have you been doing to your bras?" And I'm like, she's holding my bra in her hands, and I'm okay with it. It was this, I'm okay with the fact that she's talking to me about something private. And that whole week, we just sat around. There was no performance, there was no show. There was no judgment. She just laughed at all of our antics. My friend just, we could come and go out of the kitchen as we pleased. We could do whatever we want. She thought we were these just delightful humans. And when we left her home that weekend, I was driving home with my girlfriend in the car. And as you know, you've read this, but
Yes.
I turned to her and I said, "Adrienne," I said, is it always like that in your house? Or is that an act?" Because, we had to put on a show,
Yes.
in our house. And we were the preacher's family. We could not have anything wrong with us. We needed to be perfect. So it didn't matter if all hell broke loose the night before in our house. We showed up the next day with smiles on our faces and just stuffing all of this
Mhm.
torment, all of this pain, all of this dysfunction. And nobody knew. We did it really well. And I learned to be very good at putting on that face. So I said, "Is it like that? Or is that just an act?" And she said, "No." She said, "That's just us." And so I started to share with her, 17 years old, things that I'd never told anybody before,
Yeah.
just a few things. And she said, "Andi, you were abused." And I was shocked because back then, that word abuse, it was a very big word. It's not as big these days, but it was a very big word then. To say
Mhm.
you had been abused was, to put you in this category that people had thought of, and you better be careful with that accusation, kind of.
Well, and was there any part of you, I don't know why I'm tying this to the cancer diagnosis. I kinda I didn't wanna be in that club. Does
Exactly.
that make sense? I didn't want to be. Did you feel like, "I don't wanna be someone that's abused. I'm perfect."
I didn't feel that. I Although I can't, that's such an amazing connection that God would use that to draw that into what you had to go through.
Right.
He's so amazing. The Holy Spirit is so amazing,
I know.
the way he works. And I think my feeling in that moment was shock that I'd been abused, that
Well,
it
okay.
wasn't that it wasn't normal what I'd grown up
Yes.
with. Do you know what I mean?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so Andy, this is what I have to tell you. When I read that piece,
Yeah.
it hit me because I remember I've been running on in the red zone my whole life, like,
Mm,
ugh, so intense and tight and worried about everything
mm.
and trying to be the best. And it's anxiety, right? I
Yeah.
have anxiety. And I remember just through this diagnosis, I remember talking to my mom, who also has anxiety, but never, nobody, you know what I mean? And she's
Nobody
no,
knew it.
no.
Nope.
Well, and then so I'm telling her how I'm feeling. And she's, well, I think anyone would feel that way. I think anyone would be anxious. And suddenly one day I went, Mom, you're wrong. You're wrong because my hubby, he doesn't like sit and spin out. You know what I mean? Like I am spinning out in things I don't need to spin out on, you know?
Yeah.
And when you brought that up, that was an aha moment for me of, wait a
Mhm.
minute, this isn't how people live.
No. Isn't it this paradigm shift? I mean, it's
Yes.
such I remember this one time so distinctly. I was at a shopping center. It's a little bit of a tangent story, but
That's okay. We do
boy,
that
we
here.
love a story. We love a story. It was so funny. One time I got absolutely hammered by this very precious but religious woman for preaching with a lot of stories. And, I went home and Jesus was so good to me. God just told me, he said, "My son used stories,
You're
so
right.
you're all good." So, anyway, from then on, I was like, "All right, I'm all good." People may not get the real nugget, but they'll get a good story. But yeah, he that's how he uses his word to explain things to me. But I was out on the streets and I was coming to this shopping center and there was this busy road in front of the store I was about to go on. And there was this little girl, Lisa, standing in the middle of the road. And her mom was safely on the curb. And her mom was saying, really soft, "Come on, honey. Come on. Come on, honey." And I'm thinking, this is my child. She's standing in the middle of a road. Get on that street, yank the child off the street, and get her safely. Why are you safe and the child isn't? So finally, the little girl, I ran into the street, started acting like traffic cop to stop the cars. And I'm
Mhm.
thinking, this might be maybe one of the worst mothers I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But I was trying to not be judgmental, so I jumped in to help. But I'm thinking that grab your child and go. So anyway, the little girl, she finally crosses the street and goes into the store. So by the time I get in the store, I'm shook. But I see the little girl now wandering around the store without her mom. And finally, I see a woman come around the corner. She's got her cart and she goes, "Oh, there you are, honey. What have you been doing?" Well, that was the mother. She was in the store and hadn't noticed that her kid had run out the door and was on the street. And the woman who was calling the child softly was a stranger. And
Oh,
she was doing it gently so that the child wouldn't be scared even further and run further into harm's way. And she pulled her into the store and really was the hero of the story. And the mom thought the little girl had just been running around the store looking at things, but really she'd been on the street in danger. That was a big moment for me because that was a paradigm shift where things that I saw with my eye were not at all the way that I had seen
yeah.
them before.
Yes.
That little girl, that was not her mother. She was actually this hero pulling the child off the street.
Mhm.
I had misjudged, misread, and misinterpreted the whole story. And I think that had a twofold unpacking in me. The first was, don't be a judgmental person. Do not judge other people by how they look, by how they act. Lisa, I meet so many women. You would think millionaires. I meet people with millions of dollars. You would think they have it all together. And God will drop a word in my heart for them. And I'll be shaking. You know how that is when God
Yeah.
wants you just to say this encouraging word. I'll be a little bit shaky and I'll say the word to them, tears instantly. When people see the title of my book, When Your Protectors
Yeah.
Didn't, and they get tears in their eyes, these well dressed, well heeled women that we would easily want to judge and say, you've never been through anything hard, or,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
they've been through terrible, terrible things. And they're just out there trying to survive. So, first of all, just completely drop any judgmental attitude because as you know, because you're so relatable and gracious, you do this well. But we put up this invisible barrier between people by comparing ourselves to them.
Oh, all the time.
Yeah, we'll either be two things better feel pride at what we have or feel shame at what we don't.
Yep.
And neither one of those are what we as women should be feeling on a daily basis. And just having that conversation and finding that commonality with other women and suspending judgment so we can cheer them on their journey was what I kind of forever took away from that lesson. And the second thing, and even the mom in the store, no judgment for her. She was probably exhausted.
Yeah, she had no idea.
I had
Just
no
like
idea.
yeah.
Right. And the second thing was what we talked about earlier was this normalizing of things that when you have your world turned upside down and you realize that things were not normal in your home as a child, the abuse that you encountered was not normal. I know I'm a truth teller, so I felt betrayed. And I thought, how could we live this way? How could we live with this hypocrisy? Um, it took a lot of years to unpack that in therapy. But now I feel like just by telling my story, it I don't put any graphic details in the book, but I want
Right.
women to know that abuse is not normal, even if it was your normal.
Well, and I want to say one other thing too is that you can end the cycle.
Yeah.
And I have to say, this is interesting. And I'm not even speaking from abuse. I'm saying this could
Right.
all be in my head that I just had to be perform and be perfect for my parents and for everyone. I just had I mean, oh, that's real fun. I didn't have friends because I was so perfect or looked like it, right? Was
Right.
pretending they didn't see
Yeah.
the things that
Right.
weren't perfect. But I do remember, I mean, when I became a mother, oh,
Mm.
that was God showed me the love. Oh, I love and then we ended up adopting. I mean, I just
Wow.
love being a mom and I loved on those kiddos and I did like I worried and um I didn't want them to ever get hurt and I loved them fiercely. I
Mhm.
mean, they knew they were loved.
Hard. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And this was another awakening for me
Mm.
where this was something I was not aware, I was not familiar with. When
Yeah.
my children would come home and maybe they had to give a speech at school or something. Now, I would have come home and sang my praises. I wouldn't have really believed it, but I would have been like, "Oh
Mm.
yeah, I nailed it. I did amazing." You know, I would have never told them if I was hurting or if I had done
Oh,
bad or if
yeah.
I wasn't someone didn't
Mm.
like me. And my kiddos would come home and go, "Oh my gosh, you know, I fell on my face before I went up." And you know, and I would be like sitting there with my mouth open
Yeah.
and not familiar with what that felt like. And then I remember
Yeah.
just being like, I mean, Jesus is just there with you, even if I wasn't quite there yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he gave me a little glimpse of they're okay. They
Yeah.
don't feel like you do. You know,
Yes, isn't that
they're
amazing?
like,
Isn't it amazing? You look at somebody and you think, "Wait, you're not feeling what I'm feeling right now? You're not terrified?" I I
yeah.
I could so relate to that. I and what my moment with that was, Lisa was with my husband, Ted, and he is this just, oh my gosh, this guy, he is just from the Lord for me. And I remember when we got married and he would mess something up, as you do in marriage.
Mhm.
When he messed something up, his apologies, they were so quick, they were so heartfelt, they were so humble. I mean, oh,
Mm,
honey, man, I'm sorry, babe. I did not know how to apologize because I grew up with so much criticism that I grew up always having to defend myself. And I can't be wrong. I can't be because that interrupts that thing you were just talking about of performing perfectly. And
mhm,
then that means that there's something wrong with me. And at this core, that's what that is about with performance is that
mhm.
there's something wrong with me. And so I need to convince everybody around me that I'm okay and that I'm doing well because there's so many critical
Yep.
voices in my head that I have to counteract through this performance activity. And breaking the cycle of that was watching my husband's apology.
Mm,
And I thought, okay, it's humility that's going to break the back of that.
Mhm.
And so, um,
Mhm.
he would come up to me and he would say something that had hurt him, and I'd want to be defensive and sort of, explain my case, and I learned to just humble myself and say, I don't see what you're seeing, but can you please help me to see it so that I can own my part? I didn't want to ever own anything because then it meant I was the terrible person I already believed
Right.
I was. Does that make sense?
Yes, which you weren't the terrible you know what I mean? But yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Mm.
And I had this lie. I believed that I was this terrible person. And basically, how dare I um, make a noise and cause
Right.
any kind of fuss?
And you talk about that in your book
I
as
know.
well. You have a really good story about that.
Yeah. So I think that was my moment of, man, laugh at myself, learning to laugh at myself and just, you know, embrace all of the silly because
Yeah.
that's really who I am, and that the silly isn't bad. And when we do mess up and when we do make mistakes, take them head on
Yeah.
and say sorry. Give a good apology. That knocked that out of me.
Well, and isn't it interesting? The learning, like, even though we have such
Yeah.
strong relationships with our Savior,
Right.
we still struggle. I still struggle every day, Andy. I
Mm.
mean, you know what I mean? And so it's interesting. I want to go back and talk about how we can work to not judge. Are there any tools? Let's go back to that. But I
Mm.
want to tell you about something that happened to me this morning. And this is what's so funny.
Okay.
I have been coached up as I am a coach. I'm an attorney and a coach because I just want to learn and help people. And so, like,
Yeah.
I know, like, how you switch your mindset, right? Like, I have
Mhm.
all these tools. Now, after the diagnosis, I realized, well, number one, I got to surrender to God, but I
Mm.
still fall prey. And it's often in the morning, I wake up and there's a feeling right here in my stomach and it's not good. It's sad. And so today I was like, okay, I'm going to use my tools. And I went, okay, I better jump to gratitude. And I started doing gratitude and I went, whoa, I have learned that I am supposed to look at this.
Mhm.
And it's many mornings that I feel this way. So I
Oh,
sat and I thought, okay, what is this that I feel like, but where's this sadness coming from? And I'm like, I don't know. I was kind of trying to
yeah.
push it away. And I go, okay, wait a minute. What have I learned? And I just grabbed Jesus' hand. I'm like, okay, you come with me. You
Yeah.
come with me. Let's take a look at this.
Mhm.
Let's see what this is. And what I realized is that just like we began this conversation talking about that son who stayed and did all the work.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I wake up in the morning and I look back to the day before. I'm not even really, it's not even really, it's just happening kind of.
Right, right.
And I'm judging that as wrong. I'm looking at, well, I should have done this and I should have put more time
Mm.
into this. And that's like just ingrained in me.
Yeah.
And so I felt like Jesus was saying, okay, I want you to see you sat down and talked to two women and you brought up God. I
Yeah.
didn't go into great detail, but we talked a little bit about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he like loves all those little things that we don't even get. And
Yes, the
so then
cup
I
of
sat
water.
there with that
Mhm.
and I was like, I was actually doing what I had learned with Jesus by my side.
Mhm.
And then once I did that, then I could look at my gratitude. So I
Yeah.
had to feel that. I had to sit with it and feel
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm hoping that through practice,
Mhm.
the next morning that I wake up and feel like that, I can
Right.
learn and remember. But sometimes I won't, and I'll wake up and I'll be
Yeah.
crabby. I don't.
Mm. I
But it's
think
just.
it's the core of love that God grows in us. The more it's you think about your child as an infant, okay? Now picture holding that child, right? Now see your face looking at your child.
Mhm.
Can you see the tears and the love?
Mm.
And she's lying there. In fact, she's helpless. She cannot feed herself. She
Mhm.
cannot change herself. She cannot do one thing. But all you wanna do is you're on staring duty,
Mm.
right? You just wanna look at her and love her, and you want her to know, "You're so cherished. You're so cherished." There's nothing that you have to do.
Yes.
There's nothing you need to do.
Yes.
Anything that we do together is fun and gravy, but really it's just you that I want to sit and admire and love right now. How could God be any right? He says, "You being evil know how to give good gifts to your children," right?
Yeah.
We look at the Father Spirit, how much more will he give you the Holy Spirit? He's waking up every morning. When you wake up every morning, you're already being stared at, Lisa, by Father
Yeah.
God.
Oh, I love that. And Andy,
Yeah.
that's what it felt like. And it's so interesting that you bring up a good friend of mine taught me something because I'm like, I can't hear God. I mean, I do think I heard him say, write the book, like very
Yeah.
like, so I'm like, okay. I
And
think
you're
I
gonna
did
do it. It's gonna be great.
it. But she taught me, she said, think about a time when you really felt love and that overwhelming love. And then she told me, think about where you saw God there. And then
Mhm,
she has me write a letter. You
mhm.
ask the question, then dear Lisa, I'm like, oh, it's so powerful. But
Yes.
my point is it's always a child. It's
Yeah.
always when one of my kids was born and I'm looking at them. So when you just said that, I'm like, oh, the chills, because that is what it's like. And
Yeah.
and you can feel that even if you're not a mama.
Yeah.
You can feel that as an aunt. I can feel that over a baby deer I'm trying to save.
Absolutely,
You know?
or my dog on a date.
Yes,
You
exactly.
know, you're so they could mess on the floor and you're like, "Oh, but you're cute."
Oh, I have a good story. Well, and then grandchildren, I got 3 of them.
Wow.
And there's a so my daughter-in-law is a labor and delivery nurse, and they live really close. So when she works, my son's always like, "Can you rock June, the
Yeah,
youngest one?" I'm like,
please.
"No." And I'm just, like, filled with tears. I'm like, "This is the best." I mean,
Yeah.
it's the best. But I have this funny story. And I was telling it to someone, and he's like, "I don't believe that there is such a thing as unconditional love,
Mm.
except maybe from our father." And I said, "Well, I feel like my grandma gave it to me, and I don't think she was perfect, right?"
Yeah.
So then I told him a story about my grandson Oliver. He's so darn cute. And I had him, and I would remember how I was like, perfect, Lisa, perfect
Yeah.
little children. Everybody behave. Nobody
Yeah.
blow up. They
Right.
were really good. And then Oliver, I take him to the store, and he is cute as a button,
Uh-huh.
but he's got his finger up his nose and he's screaming in the checkout line and he wants something. And Andy, it was such a different feeling. I looked at and there were like tons of people. And I said, Oliver, I don't even care. I just love you. And the lady behind me started laughing because I'm like, I honestly could care less. You just go ahead. I don't care. You're still cute to
Right.
me.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And I think what happens to us when we're young and we hear all that criticism is that this critical nature within us, it's doing its best to remind us how not to be on a daily basis to
Yes.
protect us,
Yes.
right? This inner critic just wants to protect us, right? Okay, you got in trouble or you got you know in trouble for that. We'll just use the words in trouble.
Yeah, or I
um,
would say felt unloved. That's what I would say,
Felt
whatever.
unloved,
Yeah.
right? Because you didn't do such and such. Well, today you're gonna do such and such. And if we don't do it and we get in trouble, we begin to learn to berate ourselves.
Mhm.
You see, I told you, stupid, if you did that, you were gonna get in trouble. So just all these negative thoughts. So now we've got them externally and now we have them internally from this coping mechanism, this unhealthy coping mechanism that we learned and developed as children to survive, for heaven's sake.
Mhm.
And one of the scriptures that I is so meaningful to me is, "My sheep hear my voice." He also goes on later to say, "They will not follow the voice of a stranger." So he's telling us, "You will hear my voice."
Mhm.
So
Mm.
he says, "Do not fear, little flock. It is my Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Don't be afraid, little flock." He knows we're these helpless little sheep. We can't survive without the air he gives us, the water in the tap, the food he provides. We just can't survive. We're really helpless and yet so powerful, right? At the same time. And he comes into those places where we're afraid and where we are doubting that we're loved or that we are hearing his voice or that we're doing it right. And he assures us, "Don't worry, I got you. If you're going off course, I'll come get you." You
Yes.
have freedom. You have freedom to live your life. You have freedom to make a mistake. If you're, we call it in our family acting ugly, acting the fool. If you're out there acting ugly, he may not stop me in the moment, but later he'll say, "Hey, you know, next time, maybe you could have handled that a little different."
Yeah.
So much love, so much grace. Don't be afraid, little flock. Go live your life. You fall in a ditch,
Oh,
I'm going to get you out. You fall in the same ditch, I'll get you out. We'll get this. You'll learn. Don't worry. It's
he
that
is
nature.
he is always there. And it's interesting as you're talking about this, I'm thinking through my life and my walk. And I've always been connected to him, like I've
Yeah.
said, but not in the same way that I am now. But there, even though I was a people pleaser, and even though I did a lot of things to please people, there were some things I could
Mm.
not do
Right.
that were crazy. Like,
Right.
I couldn't send my kid to a certain school. I mean, it was like, and everyone's like, why do you, or, I homeschooled for a little while. Everyone's like, that's, everybody thought that was crazy. My daughter says no one should be homeschooled by me. In all love.
Lisa, when I was holding Zoe in my arms when she was a baby one day, the Lord spoke to me out of the blue. He said, "When you send Zoe to school," because yes, he knew. And I tell you, you just want to, you want to prepare the path for your child instead of
Yes.
preparing your child for the path, you know?
Yes.
And you want to
Yes.
just bulldoze everything out of the way. And they will not be hurt on
Yes.
my watch with the things that I endured.
Yes.
Even if they weren't these traumatic things, they're just not gonna, they're not gonna go through what I went through. But man, like you said before of your kids, they just don't struggle with the things the way that we do because we chose to step up and to fill that void and to say
Yeah.
no to things that we had experienced that we didn't want to pass on to their kids. But I always tell
Mhm.
Zoe she has a therapy fund, and
Yeah.
if she wants to use it, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sure you got some flies on your windshield from me, so if you need them,
I
you
absolutely
need
know.
'em.
I'm like open too. I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah, I know.
go for it,
Just
honey.
just go
Yeah,
talk to some. Well, and I have had
yeah.
conversations. My son is a lot like me. And
Um,
I'll have really deep conversations with
mhm.
him now about that, which is really,
Yeah,
really good and helpful. But
yeah.
I love how you talk about that because God does have us.
Yes.
And here's the thing, through through the hards, like if
Mhm.
I wouldn't have gone through what I went through recently with the breast cancer scare,
Mm,
I would never be as healthy as I am now.
right.
And I forget that I lived in that hot, like
Mhm.
scared fight or flight. I don't live there anymore.
Oh,
Like,
that's
praise God.
phenomenal.
Like, and
Yes,
I wouldn't be here if
right.
I wouldn't have gone through that hard. And it was funny as
Yeah.
I sat through that, I knew I was going to be okay.
Mhm.
And and I knew that I needed it.
Yeah,
And even, it's just and I'm still learning from it.
yeah, Isn't it amazing?
It is amazing.
It's remarkable. I just taught at I just got back from teaching at a conference about suffering,
Ugh,
and nobody wants to talk about suffering. As you know, and I didn't used to want to talk about suffering,
yeah.
but I do talk about it in my book in the one story about the tree and how I found that tree at the edge of my sister's property. And it was this big oak tree, and this barbed wire. It had fallen onto this
Mhm.
ancient barbed wire fence year before, and it had incorporated the barbed wire into itself.
Yeah.
And people tell us
Mm.
that grief and suffering will shrink over time or get better over time. And personally, I could cry in a heartbeat over something that wounded my daughter or
Yeah.
wounded me. You know what I mean? It can still feel as big and as fresh. So I don't think it shrinks over time. I don't buy that. But what I believe is that we grow in spite of it, like that tree.
Mhm.
The tree had this barbed wire running through it, and it grew in spite of it, and now that barbed wire was part of its story. But the story the barbed wire told is a story of the tree overcoming.
Amen.
So with your breast cancer, it's this barbed wire through many years of your journey and will continue to be,
Mhm.
but you overcame. And that is a powerful story that you get, and you get to share with Jesus, that nobody else has.
Yes. And you
And
know what's
that's empowering.
it is. And what's so interesting was I was it was weird how it affected me because I didn't want to be in a cancer support group.
Mm,
I was like I didn't want it to define me.
yeah,
But
that's
it's
right.
not.
It
It doesn't
doesn't.
define me.
It
No.
doesn't. And I always tell people there's victim and survivor, right?
Mhm.
And I always tell people, victim, something legitimately happened to you that was not okay. And let's sit with that and
Yeah.
let's talk about that and let's heal that. Survivor is somebody who does those things. Victim acknowledges what was done to me was not of God, not the Father's heart.
Right.
Survivor is somebody who says, I'm not going to let that define my actions or
Oof.
my life. I am not going to. Um, we talk about the story about my niece. It's hilarious. She learned with her tantrums. She had a 3-part tantrum. She learned she would she would throw her arms in the air like almost like Willem Dafoe on the cover of Platoon, you know, "Ah, yeah." And then she would drop to her knees, and then she would fall on her face, and then everybody would run to her, and she would get all this attention. So she never unlearned that behavior. She just carried that through.
Yeah.
And so it didn't matter positive or negative reinforcement. She just carried that behavior through. So the first time she felt it, there was a legitimate offense, but then it
Right.
just became her go-to behavior for everything that when she didn't get her way or if she was hurt, it didn't matter across the board. And one day, my daughter had been kind of like witnessing this display. And it was almost like she had a little crayon pad. Note to self. Next time I don't get my way. And so, so she
Ah.
tried it on me. And I remember I was carrying my laundry basket down the hallway, and she just said to me, like, "Mommy, can I have a cookie?" And I said, "No, baby, you can't have a treat right now. So you had a lot of treats today." And so she did it like on it was very impressive. All 3 parts, Lisa. She didn't miss one. Ah, that dropped to her knees, fell on her face, wailing around on the floor. And I stood there with my laundry basket. I'm like, this is impressive. And I just remember I just looked down at her. I said, sweetheart, when you're done doing that, mommy will be in the bedroom folding laundry. And I said, come on in. You can help me fold laundry, then we'll play together. And I just stepped over the flailing, legs. I just walked down the hallway to my bedroom. And I could see her at the corner of my eye. And I could see that she just had this moment where she was like, huh? She she got off the floor. That was her last tantrum. Lisa, she
Oh,
never had another one. And I often liken how I was as a victim. You learn all these behaviors to cope, right? The critical being critical of yourself, or you learn to, moan and whine about things or complain, or sometimes we get bitter. And we learn all these mechanisms and coping skills that aren't empowering us. They're just keeping us on the
right.
floor in victim mode. So, yes, you were a victim. That's painful. Let's talk about that. Now you're moving into survivor. Hey, I'm overcoming this. I'm
Yeah.
growing in spite of this. But then once we grow from survivor, that's where we become an overcomer. And that is where we are the most lethal to the kingdom of darkness.
Mm,
Because now we know, if I can overcome this, my friends can too.
yes.
And I'm not going to fix them. I'm not going to try and control them, because the only
Yes.
control we get is self control, not other control.
Yep.
I am going to just be who God has reshaped me to be, a woman who's had a painful journey that has allowed Jesus to show her where he was in every incident. And now I can pass my story along as an offering and a guide for you to take at your pace. And Lisa, that's why the enemy doesn't want women to find their voice. That's why he wants them to stay stuck. That's why he doesn't want them to write the book,
Mhm.
because it's going to bless other people. And your book, when it comes out, I can't wait to champion it, because you're so congruent and authentic. And all of these stories you're willing to tell on yourself show me that you really have learned to conquer that performance, because you're vulnerable and you're humble. And even though you may not believe it yet, I see it. I
You're
see
so
it in
sweet. You're
you.
gonna make me cry.
I do. I see it in you. You've come so far. I
You're
see it
so
in
sweet. Well, and it's funny because and honey, I'm looking at we're going way over time. I might have
Oh,
to
I'm
make
sorry.
2 parts. No, I'm sorry. Do you have the time to keep
Yeah,
talking to
go
me?
for it, unless you want me to stop,
No,
and then we'll stop right now.
I don't. But I because as you're talking about this, and I think I remember this in the book too. I think that before I got hit over the head with the
Mhm,
stage 1 cancer and sat through that whole hard treatment.
mhm.
Um, it's so funny because I was writing my stories per
Mhm.
Bob,
Yeah.
and one
Good
of them
old
was
Bob. Don't
yeah,
we love him?
yes, we do, I
Oh,
do, I love him.
so
So
cute.
I'm walking with 2 friends. I had gone and gotten my mammogram, and we were heading out to Arizona the next day on a long trip because my baby goes to college out there. And so I went, got my mammogram, never was afraid of anything with
No,
breast cancer, not in my
no,
family. It don't
not even on the radar.
not a big chesty woman. I was always worried about my heart. I thought I
Yeah,
should get my heart checked. And I was like, well, I'll do this. It's easier. So I'm out on this walk. I'm out on this walk with friends after packing it all in, right? We're hiking. And I was because I do want to share what I learned, right? I'm
yeah,
sharing all this garbage about how to eat well, intermittent fasting. Like I'm telling, like I like want to tell you what to do.
yeah.
Now, when I look back at that, can you imagine how annoying that was? How annoying is that? Like, and that's how my book would have been. My book would have been do this. And then it's like, so I will catch myself, Andy, like
Yeah,
telling people how to eat. And
good.
I go, well, I mean, look at me. I got cancer.
Yeah, we get to the end of our lives and we're like, "I don't know anything." But hey, if it sticks, it's probably the Holy Spirit. Throw it on the wall, and just if it sticks and doesn't slide off, it's
Yeah.
probably the Lord.
Well, and I'm a
Yeah,
horrible one where I grab all this stuff. My
yeah.
daughter's a medical doctor and I don't know where she came from because I grab onto all these things and I go, okay, we got to do this. I don't really know why. I don't know, but I know I heard it's good for you. So I'm just going to do it because I thought I could control
I thought I
everything.
could.
Yes.
Yeah, it's an
It's so
illusion.
crazy. So
Mhm.
crazy. Okay. I have to round this up and I do have to end it because I have taken more
Yeah,
time than I said I would. But I did I wanted to talk a little bit about tools. I just
okay.
want them for myself. And if any of the listeners out there are feeling like I judge people, Andy.
Mm,
I do, and I don't want to. And I'm
mm,
not just talking about like I'm working on that where I'm being just like you said, those multimillionaire women that you're always like, oh, now I go
yeah,
up and I talk to them and they come to my barn and they
yeah,
sit down with me and
right,
we snack and we talk about Jesus. And
right.
they believe in him too. You know what I mean? And
Yes,
it's like,
yes,
oh, but I
yes.
also do the opposite where I see someone in the street who looks different than me
Mhm,
and I
mhm,
judge. I don't
mm,
wanna do that anymore.
mm,
And I now I'm becoming aware of it,
mm,
but it is so ingrained
mm,
in that judgment. I don't want that anymore. What do you do besides becoming aware of it and seeing it? And
mhm,
I guess taking steps, like
mhm.
maybe now next time reach out to someone that looks different than me.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. What do you do about that? What's your
I think your first thing that you mentioned, the awareness, I think
Mhm.
that that's the most empowering part right there, is the awareness that you have had this propensity to sort of create stories for other people and
Yes.
right? To write their story. And, I think I can tell you what not to do. I know that I have put myself in the position before where I felt like I needed to kinda tell people what's what, to tell them I wouldn't do that or I would do this. Now I just have suspended all of that as well. Years and years and years now, I just don't even remember how long it's been that I haven't done that.
How
So I
did
think
you
it's like
stop that? Because 'Cause I'm not good
how did
at
I stop
that.
the reason that I stopped that is that I saw it didn't bear any fruit.
That's true.
It was like, this is not bearing any fruit in them. They don't feel loved. They don't feel special. They feel, like, criticized rather than, corrected. They would do something. I can't stand gossip. I just
Ugh.
can't stand it. I hate it. But rather than me saying, why would you say something like that about somebody? What it did is and yeah, it was wrong. I was calling it out because I don't have this justice thing, right? And a lot of it for me was about justice, injustice. And if I called out the story, they just got defensive and critical rather than realizing that if I just stayed in their lives and didn't participate in the gossip, I would be modeling something that would be healthier for them, where then they could look at and have the opportunity to own their own behavior. And so then when I confronted situations like with the gossip, like, why would you say that about somebody? And then they got defensive. I wasn't doing this. Then they felt they needed to go clear their name with the person preemptively and created this whole storm. I realized there are times when people are acting not their best selves. And I just keep that core value within me of kindness, love, and respect. And I keep being who God has asked me to be in that situation. And I keep being myself, somebody who loves, who doesn't gossip, who doesn't do these unkind things, because I learned that it hurts people if I do.
Mhm.
So I think part of the answer is modeling. I think to answer your question, to circle back around to judging the person on the street, and actually to back up a little bit on the modeling thing, I think that's really what Jesus did for his
I was
disciples.
just gonna say that,
They
Andy.
acted
Yes.
this is the only program Jesus left us with is
Yes.
discipleship. Build my kingdom, and by the way, just disciple one person at a time. So that's what he did. They were acting the fool all the time, and
Yeah.
he just loved them.
Yes.
He was hard on the religious and he was loving and disciplinary toward his disciples.
Mhm.
And so we don't tolerate any religious garbage, but we do prioritize relationship in a way where we model healthy, loving behavior. And eventually, people around us can either choose to change and say, hey, you know what, this might not be a tool I want to have in my tool bag anymore
Right.
either. And I like the way she never talks about anybody. I want to be like that.
Mhm.
Or they will slowly distance themselves and God will bring their lesson
Yeah.
another way. But that's not up to me. That's only up to
Yeah.
me to become the most loving, kind version of myself that I can and let people be themselves while maintaining the values God has worked
Mm.
so hard to instill in me. And I'm not by any means perfect. I do stupid things still that I have to repent for.
Right.
So that's part one. And I think part two, and like you said, you have to wrap this up. So I'm going to try really fast to wrap this question up for you. But how not to judge people is that I always ask Jesus, um, Jesus, if I'm prone to wanting to judge a situation, I say, can you just give me your eyes and your heart? In
Yeah.
fact, it happened the other day. I saw somebody and I thought, boy, it sure looks like they could use a hug. And the Lord said, um, or a touch, right? Or a word. And the Lord said, not from you, not
Oh,
from you. And I thought, okay, he has something else planned
yeah.
for them. I might have had motives that were not right and
Right.
I wouldn't have given the right love. So
Right.
I wait on him in that moment. Lord, what do you want to say? Do you have something you want me to say to this person? Every time he'll tell me, either he'll give me something to say that's loving, or he'll tell me, not from you, just smile.
Yeah.
Just smile, that's enough.
I love that. Andy, I will you please come back? Because I feel like
I'm sorry, I should come with a warning, talks too much.
no, you do not. Because I could talk to you for everything that we're talking about. I have another situation that I could talk to you about where
Mm,
God has been, you know what I mean, been there
yeah,
when you're talking to
Jesus.
someone.
It's just
Oh,
Jesus.
yeah, it's amazing. So I really would like to have you back
Oh,
if you're up for it.
be honored.
And I just want you to know how grateful I am for you taking the time. I'm so thankful that God brought us together. We didn't even really get to talk that
Yeah,
much at the Oaks when we were working there, but
I
I
know.
was so excited about your book. I was so happy to read it. Thank you for listening and writing it and letting God use you. I
Mm,
so appreciate it. And I'm going to have a link in my show notes for
mm.
anyone who wants to buy it. I have given it away. I have had friends purchase it because it's amazing. It's amazing. I feel like for every woman. It's for every
Yeah,
woman,
I
Andy.
believe so. I do believe
Yes.
that. Jesus gave me the title, but I really do believe it's lessons on, hey, you know what? Don't learn this one the hard way. Just learn it from me.
Yes. And we might learn it the hard way, but then
Yeah,
it'll
yeah,
still
too.
help us. It'll
Thank
still
you,
help us.
Lisa. Thank
Oh
you.
my God.
You're so extraordinary. Yeah,
So are you. So are you.
cherish you.
You're a blessing. Thank you so much,
Thank
Andy.
you.